My name is Paige Lohuis, and I am the Marketing and Events Manager for sFOX. And today we will be discussing the roadmap for navigating the security, regulatory, and customer success considerations of crypto custody. Joining us today, we have Daniel and Dimitry from sFOX. Daniel and Dimitry, it's great to have you here. Can you each tell us a little bit about your role here at sFOX?
Hey, Paige. I would be happy to get that started. Yeah, I am Daniel Hinton, work out of Nashville, Tennessee. I head up the operations and finance teams here at sFOX. Been with the company close to 5 years now. So I've seen a lot of industry changes and really excited for the conversation we're going to have today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dimitry Chesnokov, and I'm leading up the client success department at sFOX. I've joined the company about a little over a month now. I'm located here in New York, and I think this topic is really crucial for the clients to understand and to navigate these current waters, as Paige mentioned. So I'm looking forward to this discussion, and hopefully it'll be very helpful for you guys.
Great. In the US crypto sector, it can be hard to know the right question to ask in order to pick the correct custody solution for your asset management needs. Don't worry, sFOX has you covered, and today we will dive into the ins and outs of professional crypto custody. We want to remind everyone that we will have time for questions from the audience towards the end, so please feel free to submit any questions you may have in the Q&A box, and we'll do our best to get them answered. Great. Okay, let's get started. So, with custody being one of the most important but poorly understood elements of the modern crypto landscape, Dimitry, can you explain the pros and cons of cold versus hot storage, as well as other methods traders may use?
Absolutely. I think that's an excellent question to kick things off. So first of all, let's talk about the hot wallets, kind of the pros and cons there. So the pros, obviously, for a hot wallet, which is an online wallet that, could be an example of, like, let's say MetaMask. The pros of that would be the fact that you have the ability to instantly access liquidity and move your funds as you wish, without any type of delay. And the cons, obviously, of that that many are aware is that it's susceptible to malicious attacks and having your funds basically stolen. We hear about that quite often, unfortunately. That is still occurring, where hot wallets get compromised and assets get stolen. The cold wallet does provide extra security on top of the general security of cryptocurrency blockchain. Think of like the Ledger wallet. Some venues do utilize those tools to keep the wallet offline, and that adds security where the malicious attacker cannot access the funds because it's not online. It's on device, and that's the pros of it. But the cons of it is basically the fact that you're required to physically actually go to the device and do certain things and to make the assets move, and that can be time consuming, especially, some volatility in the market, or when the funds need to be accessed quickly by the client, that create some of the friction there. Actually, oftentimes, companies will have multiple procedures, or they have personnel that is comprised of multiple people. They will have to go to a specific location, and they have to all sign off or do some kind of a process in order to move those assets from cold to hot. This is actually something that you might have heard certain exchanges do, where delays would sometimes just because of their internal procedures where they have to move funds from cold to hot. And again, that is susceptible to the personnel, the kind of the human side of things, and essentially can delay asset transfers for clients or for what you're looking to do. And given the market conditions, that the speed is something that you need, that is not really helpful. Now, where does kind of sFOX fall in here, right? So what we do is a real-time cold offering. with sFOX Safe. And the pros of that is essentially you get the benefits of that cold storage, but also at the same time you get access to be able to trade your your funds and have instant liquidity whenever you want. You get custody with sFOX Safe, and in case of bankruptcy of the entity, the assets that you custody they don't end up on the liabilities balance sheet of the entity that is going bankrupt. And as we know, right now that is a very important subject to understand when choosing a venue that you want to work with, from either your retail or institutional client. This is something that is super important given kind of the behavior that we've seen from certain entities and the loss of funds from clients. So it's kind of like the brief overview of the pros and cons of cold hot, and as well as kind of like the real-time cold solution that we're providing here.
Right. Over the past year, we have seen countless investment platforms file for bankruptcy, and in turn, traders have lost their profiles. Dimitry mentioned that Safe offers bankruptcy protection. Daniel, can you break down what that actually means and how Safe is providing that protection?
Sure, Paige, I'd be happy to. I think just maybe taking a step back here before I dive into the question, but looking at what's kind of at stake, right? So you own some crypto assets, Bitcoin, ETH, whatever you own, and you have to store those somewhere, right? And if you choose the wrong place to store those, depending on how that is structured, you could end up losing those through no fault of your own, right? There have been a lot of marquee instances of this type of thing happening in the past. One from recent memory is Celsius, right? So Celsius had a downturn back in late of 2022, and in their bankruptcy case, the judge in the case ruled that those customer assets would be last in line from the various creditors involved, and that Celsius to some degree could use those client assets to repay off their creditors, right? So it's very important to understand who you're dealing with and how they're structured for these types of considerations. I mean, bankruptcies only happen when there is kind of this confluence of a solvency issue and a liquidity crisis, right? So in the case of long time ago history of Mt. Gox, this was the exchange, the biggest global exchange in the 2012, 13, 14 era. And it at some points it had 80% of all trading volume globally happening on their platform. For a while, they had a couple series of different hacks, and for a while they were insolvent. So all their clients could not withdraw, but they were liquid. So it was kind of that classic, Ponzi model to where new people come in and the price of Bitcoin would be higher on Gox. So it would recruit new people to come in, and then they would still be able to withdraw. But eventually, when it unraveled, it was a bankruptcy case, and that case is actually still ongoing to this day, right? So we're closing in on the 10-year mark after the Mt. Gox collapse, and it's still in the bankruptcy courts. One of the beautiful things about having a bankruptcy protected status like that which is offered through Safe Trust Company is that if there were ever a situation where the firm were to go bankrupt and file, the client assets involved, because they're not legally owned by our company, they would not be subject to the bankruptcy proceedings that take months and years in lots of cases, right? So a couple of things to look out for as a client in the market choosing a custodian is essentially who owns the assets. One way that you'll know who owns the assets is the concept of bailment, right? So when you sign custody agreement with Safe Trust Company, it's a bailment arrangement, right? So you're not turning over ownership of those assets to us. We are holding them the same way that a valet would hold your car keys when you park your car with them in the parking deck, right? So we don't claim ownership of them, and you're not giving up more rights than you need to for the service that we're providing to you. A couple of other nice things with so not every company can offer bankruptcy protection. It's only a certain type company. We'll talk more about that later in the conversation. But just know that not every company can even provide this, even if they wanted to. And just to harken back to Celsius or Mt. Gox or anything, these are the companies might have the best of intentions, but when you get into a bankruptcy situation, the intentions of the parties don't really matter so much. It's what the court says can legally be done, right? So even if Celsius didn't want their customer assets to be eligible for use to pay creditors, the court doesn't see it that way, and they don't really care about the intent. So it's really the legal structure that matters here.
Great. And you hinted at this just now in your last answer, but how is safe protection different from that of other custodians?
Yeah, that's a fun topic. And I'll hit on a few things here, but the first big one is just the concept of the business entity that you're dealing with. So when you custody with Safe Trust, you are dealing with a public trust company registered and regulated in the state of Wyoming by the Division of Banking. Like that is, that's a pretty simple answer as far as who's your counterparty and who's your regulator, right? Obviously, we have a lot of technology that we provide in the process of providing custody services, but we're not only a technology provider, right? So we have a regulatory wrapper that provides clarity and structure around this technology offering that other custodians can't really match. Right? The second part, and Dimitry hit on this a little while ago, it's just the fact that we provide an integrated service. So within your account, within sFOX Safe, you have full access to the sFOX suite of custody, trading, prime services, to where you're not really giving up anything by custodying with us. It's really only additive into, number one, the security that you get, the regulatory side of things, and then also still having access to the great sFOX suite of trading and execution services too. Probably, there are a lot of different types of people attending this webinar today. We have funds, RIAs, banks, businesses, individuals, foundations. And a lot of those people access the market in different ways, right? Some people trade on the UI, some people trade on our various APIs, some people use our Connect product, which is an API-driven, fully back-end service to where you can offer sFOX services to your downstream customers. So that's another way that we're differentiated, is the full service aspect of our offering integrated into custody, right? So however you need to access the market, you can access our trading and our custody through all of these access points.
Great. Another term being used throughout the industry right now is qualified custodian. Daniel, can you explain what that means?
Yeah, I would love to. And this is something where a lot of people kind of get confused as far as people that are kind of crypto native. They don't really think about these types of designations very often. And the types of firms so first of all, not every type of company can even be a qualified custodian, right? So you are becoming qualified by some regulatory authority, right? In our case, our regulator is the Wyoming Division of Banking. There are other national and state regulators as well. Lots of states offer a similar trust company structure. That could be the SEC on a national level, FINRA, state banking regulators. So it is a qualified custodian is really just a financial institution that has the legal authority to custody client assets, whether those are commodities or securities or other things that exist out there. So beyond that initial, like, what is a qualified custodian? We've talked a little bit about some of the benefits you get from working with a qualified custodian. Some firms in the market are required to use a qualified custodian, but there's not really much of a downside ever. In traditional markets, anyone that you work with is kind of be de facto a qualified custodian, but in crypto, it's not nearly as cut and dry. But in general, you're never going to really be disadvantaged by using one. And from some of the examples we've talked about before, you can be severely disadvantaged if you choose wrong in the process, right? But a few of the other benefits and that you get from working with a qualified custodian are just really the regulatory oversight that you're going to be receiving. For instance, in our case, we will have annual audits by the Wyoming Division of Banking, right? We have regulatory, statutory requirements for how to custody client assets as far as key generation, key storage, types of hardware devices that are eligible, those types of statutory things that we're being held to a standard to that a lot of other either exchanges or technology providers wouldn't necessarily have to do. So there's a lot of things that go on in the background of someone who could be a qualified custodian that you wouldn't necessarily see on day one, but there's a good reason why a lot of these things exist. Yeah. So I think really it just gets down to the ease of access and management and the transparency that you're going to get from working with a qualified custodian, as far as why that's a real differentiator in the crypto markets, especially versus traditional markets, where you're always going to be working with one and you have a choice, in the crypto markets.
Got it. Dimitry, what assets can a trader custody with safe trust?
Yeah, great question. And you might ask, like, Dimitry, yeah, that sounds great, but like, what can I actually custody at these, at this place and get the benefits, right? So one nice thing about our status of a public trust company is that we can custody digital asset commodities, digital asset securities, US dollars, fiat, as well as stable coins. Basically you can see that, everything that is available to trade on sFOX platform, that can be custody, as well as on top of that, other assets are not available for trading as well. Those can be custody as well. So the available assets list is quite wide, and we have technological capability to support that maybe specific L1 or that unique network. That's something that we can definitely clients can definitely custody and use this service for.
Yeah, and Paige, I'll just tack on one thing with that, along with what Dimitry said, that within the trading infrastructure that we offer, we trade largely the top market cap assets, right? But on the custody side, we have a much broader ability, right? So if there's something that we have any clients that are interested in custodying with us that we don't currently support trading in, that's something that we can definitely work with them on and developing a plan to support that. And really the main hurdle in most cases there is just understanding what exactly, because there's a lot of there's a pretty at this point there's a very wide range of things that could be custodied in the digital asset space. So it's really understanding what the client need is and being sure that we can meet the technological requirements of doing that. But outside of that, we have a pretty broad ability to support anything that needs to be custodied.
Got it. Makes sense. Dimitry, can you break down the layers of security through the platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So on top of the regulatory wrapper that Daniel went over and the protection there, so there are certain things in place internally to protect the assets and just the activity on the platform. So there's type of normal activity, there's internal processes as a cybersecurity in place to protect the assets. There's on top of that, there's also user-based security functions that you'll have access to control access, who has access to those assets. And that's something that is we offer, which is the workflow automation that you have access to. So you don't have to, let's say, contact a specific person, get a hold of them, and tell them who can have access and have that friction there. You can actually manage that right on the platform yourself through workflow automation. That gives you more security and flexibility there. And on top of that, the next layer is really the insurance that comes with it. That also adds additional protection to the layers of the security that I just went over. So basically, regulatory wrapper, internal security, user-based security functions that allow users to manage that themselves from the platform, as well as insurance.
Yeah, and Dimitry, I think that is partnering those layers of security together with the regulatory, the firm-based security, and then the user-based workflow automations. Of the areas that we see on a day-to-day, we see users that take the time to understand the workflow that they're trying to design. Some people value timeliness over additional security. Some people value having the right team members with the right permissions. And you can mix and match a lot of different goals within our workflow automation tools to say, okay, for withdrawals of Bitcoin that are over $100,000, we want these 2 people on the team to have to sign. We want these 3 of 5 to have to sign. There's a lot of there's a lot of mixing and matching and customization that can happen. And from the clients that really dig in to understand the workflow that they're trying to achieve and then work with our team to design that and implement it, we see those types of people have a really great experience, so that kind of what to expect. And you're never in a situation where you need to do something, but somebody on the team's on vacation and you didn't quite understand what was necessary to get these funds in the right place. And then it ends up being a challenging situation. So that's something that we love doing, and we spend a lot of time on with clients essentially every day, is designing those types of policies and workflows to where it can meet the needs. So some people might not want a withdrawal to happen essentially ever under any circumstances, and you can design a policy to make that happen as well. So I just really encourage people to think through what type of workflow they would like, and then we can design something with you to make it happen.
Great. Dimitry just mentioned about that last layer of protection being insurance. What insurance is provided to clients through SAFE?
Yeah, that's a great question, Paige. So with crypto insurance, just talking about the way that we wrap risk and security into as compelling of a package as possible, insurance is definitely a component of that, right? So we do offer a $200 million specie insurance policy to our clients of Safe Trust Company. This is a policy, specie, historically it's been, if you had, some bank, some gold in a bank, it's the physical gold. So it's kind of treated as a physical object for this type of policy. There are several types of loss events that are covered, and we're more than happy to cover those types of things with clients on a one-on-one basis. But generally, we've structured our policy combined with our patented technology solution to the way that we approach custody with our real-time cold storage that's been in operation since 2016 and has not ever had any security incidences. We've really designed our insurance to focus on the types of loss that we think are most likely, even however unlikely they might be. So we also have some really great tools within that insurance policy to either scale it up for particular client needs, which we've done before, or to carve out specific assets or amounts of loss that a particular client would like to have explicitly covered. So we have a great relationship with our broker and underwriter for the insurance, and we really like having those conversations as well, because sometimes there are people who need a separate carved out policy to fit a particular need, and we love to have those conversations too. Outside of the specific, coin related insurance, we also carry other, broad insurance policies for E&O and for cybersecurity and general liability and the full suite of insurance products that you would expect a firm like ours to have. So yeah, we feel very good about our insurance right now. And yeah, I think it's even in something like that, just having the flexibility to work with clients to, say you need 50 million of coverage, carved out for you in a particular use case, like we can do that, or we can tack that onto the existing policy to meet the needs that you have as a client.
Great. Well, we've seen a lot of great questions come in from the audience. So if you're listening to this live, feel free to continue sending in your questions to the Q&A box, and we'll try to get to them today. But we're going to kick off this Q&A with first question. So question 1 is Safe Trust Company a bank?
Dimitry, I will take this one for us here.
All right.
So within the state of Wyoming, there are 2 main types of digital asset native regulated companies. One is a public trust company that sFOX and Safe Trust Company have chosen. The other is a special purpose depository institution, or SPDI. So the SPDI is more of it's a depository institution. So that's more of a traditional bank from a commercial, I have a checking account, I have a savings account type of focus. One of the great things about the regulatory clarity that we have in Wyoming is for public trust companies like Safe Trust Company to be considered a bank for other purposes. So it's a non-depository trust. So you would never have a checking account or a savings account with us. We use other banks for that type of activity, but for the purpose of qualifying as a qualified custodian under the 1940 Act, we can be considered a bank for those types of purposes. So yes, in this narrow scope, which is where we focus on custody, yes, it would be considered a bank for those purposes.
Great. Am I eligible for sFOX Safe no matter where I live?
I'll take that one. So from the client side, if you're in US or international clients, yes, you can use sFOX Safe. With an exception, obviously, from jurisdictions that are under regulatory, like OFAC restrictions. But yes, absolutely. We can definitely service clients in US, outside of US. So you can definitely apply for the sFOX Safe.
Great. How does sFOX guarantee assets are protected? Are the funds held in individual wallets for each customer? If not, in the event of bankruptcy, how would sFOX guarantee customers receive their funds?
Yeah, sure. I will take this guy. The way to think about asset segregation. So there's a couple of different axes here. For segregating firm assets from customer assets is definitely a big part of ensuring the bankruptcy protection that we feel very confident we have kind of nailed from that perspective. From a client to client perspective, depending on the asset, we may or may not have individually segregated client wallets. There are some pros and cons to that, which may be out of the scope of this conversation. But I think the spirit of the question is around client assets to firm assets, and yes, there's quite strict segregation from that side of things. And then from a process standpoint, I gave the example of Mt. Gox earlier, and I think Mt. Gox went bankrupt in maybe February of 2014, and the process is still going on, right? So a big part of the intent of this type of structure is to avoid ever having that type of delay in resolving the assets that are client assets that happen to be custodied by the Safe Trust Company. Yeah. So it would be resolved much more quickly than anything like some of the bankruptcy cases we've seen in the market so far.
How quickly are we able to move assets from safe custody?
Yeah, Dimitry, I don't mind taking this one as well. It's this is one where it's clients kind of have different meanings sometimes when they bring up this type of question. I will say in some other custody platforms, right, because they have a more limited offering of pure custody only, if you want to move out from that custody provider to wherever you happen to be trading, there can be, significant delays, up to a day sometimes in accessing those funds and getting them moved on chain. That's one of the great benefits combining the custody solution that sFOX Safe is able to offer with the market aggregation that we offer on the trading and execution side. So essentially, there's no time delay at all, right? Moving from custody to trading, because it's a single integrated offering to where whether you're buying or selling, on the fiat or crypto side, there's never any delay from that side of things. We do have clients who use sFOX for execution only and have an external custodian. For those types of cases, there is very minimal delay, either none whatsoever, or essentially about 15 minutes just for one of our next batch withdrawals to happen. And again, from a trading perspective, you can come in, buy the asset you're looking to buy, sell the asset you're looking to sell, and then immediately, treat us as a prime that we can offer that instant settlement to you and get your assets off the platform. So whether you're doing everything with us or just a portion, you still see a ton of benefit from the way that we are structured.
Right. As an existing client, how will my experience change after I upgrade to sFOX Safe?
All right, I'll jump in here on this one from the client perspective. So this is one of the best parts where by upgrading to sFOX Safe, your experience is not going to change. You're just going to get an additional feature. So everything that you're used to using when it comes to the platform in terms of trading, it's basic or pro trading, that still remains the same. The only thing that you'll have access that's different to is the Safe tab, where you can work out the workflow automation that we've covered earlier. So the deposit addresses will not change as well, which is great because we understand that clients, maybe institutions, maybe have those saved, and that sometimes can be a pain when those addresses do change, and internally they have a database that have to be updated as well, which creates more friction. So from our side, that does not change. So the client can use still the same deposit addresses for those assets that they've been depositing previously, and also the potential for free upgrade if your account is below 250K USD notional value. So really think of it in a way where the experience for the client changes only in a way where an additional feature comes in, but the existing structure that they've been working on in terms of the user experience, that retains the same. They can still use the same features and so on.
Great. Will the client ever be responsible for managing a key, or does that entirely sit with sFOX as a centralized custodian?
I can take this one as well.
Sure.
So no, the clients are never going to be responsible to manage key material. So the only responsibility would be on the client is through that workflow automation. That's a process that we've covered where they set up for approval rules and additional security. Again, we want to make this as frictionless as possible, but also keep the security feature in place, right? So it depends where the client falls in terms of the security spectrum, as and the convenience, in working out that workflow automation for approvals that must be done on the clients and their team. But in short, no.
Great. Well, as we come to the end of this session, I have one final question for you two. So let's say I just upgraded to sFOX Safe. Now what? What are the recommended next steps?
So I'll take this one. So if you just registered, what you can do is you can contact client services at sFOX.com, and you upgrade by basically signing a custody agreement with us. But to kick off the conversation, again, get in touch with the client services experts there. We'll be happy to walk you through the process and make it as seamless as possible, to basically tailor a solution for you on top of just basic offering that we have with like the sFOX Safe and custody, but work on custom solutions as well to fit your goals through workflow automation that we covered for those unique situations where you need additional security or approvals, or if you need custom tailored like insurance policies that Daniel covered as well. So the best, the first thing that you need to do is get in touch with us through the client services at sFOX.
Dimitry, step number one, man, give you a high five, buddy.
Yeah, that too. Yes.
Yeah, I would just like to echo that, the same white glove approach that we take with our trading and execution and prime services, we offer with custody as well. So, we love talking to people about understanding how our execution algorithms work, understanding how to design workflow from their trading strategies that can be as easily to implement and as impactful as possible. We love doing that type of thing on the custody side as well. So please be feel free to leverage our team and our resources as much as possible, because depending on your level of familiarity with Bitcoin and digital assets, it can be daunting, but it really doesn't have to be that way. And we are all here to help you in your journey and just make you feel confident, because if you've ever dealt with Bitcoin or sending a Bitcoin transaction or having a Bitcoin wallet, and you're not confident about what you're doing, it's a very nerve-wracking process, right? And we're all here to help you feel comfortable and confident in your setup and make you as successful as you can be.
Great. Well, on that note, I want to say thank you to our panelists, Dimitry and Daniel. This has been very informative. Also, thank you to everyone who attended. We hope you learned something new today. Stay tuned for next month's AMA session and keep an eye on your inbox for an email with the recording from today. And if you have any follow-up questions or we didn't get to your question, please reach out to sFOX and learn more. Bye, everyone. Have a great day.